Welcome to today's Explainer, where we are securing an exclusive, behind-the-scenes look straight through the examiner's lens. Listen, if you're currently studying Cambridge AS and A-Level Accounting 9706, you already know that adjustments to draft financial statements, and specifically accruals and prepayments, is absolutely notorious. According to principal examiner reports, it's consistently one of the most misunderstood areas in the entire syllabus. But today we are going to fix that. We're going to break down the exact data, the technical frameworks, and the cognitive strategies you need to stop losing those unnecessary marks and actually start mastering these complex adjustments.
Okay, let's dive into this and lay out our structured roadmap for tackling this beast of a topic. We'll kick things off with the accruals and prepayments trap, move into the core exam principles, break down a standardized methodology, look at the top 3 examiner warnings, and finally, we'll cover mastering evaluation strategies. Section 1, the accruals and prepayments trap. Before we can even think about building the perfect exam response, we really have to understand the core problem that candidates face when they're trying to secure top marks in this area.
So what does this all mean in the exam hall? Why do students find interpreting complex texts and data so incredibly hard? This is a critical question drawn directly from our research into Cambridge examiner reports. You see, the source material reveals that interpreting this data requires extracting highly precise figures from dense paragraphs and tables, figuring out the exact relationship between dates and payments, and then drawing evidence-based conclusions. When you're sitting there under massive time pressure, trying to separate a prepaid expense from an accrued liability that's hidden in a huge block of text, well, it's like finding a needle in a haystack if you don't have a crystal-clear strategy. And that brings us to our first major examiner alert. The reports show us that candidates constantly confuse key terminology. Accrued income, prepaid expenses, provisions, these terms get all mixed up during written analysis. The simplest fix? Always define your key terms before using them in extended responses. It anchors your answer, it immediately proves your foundational knowledge to the examiner, and most importantly, it stops you from tangling up your own logic halfway through a high-tariff question. Moving on to Section 2, Core Exam Principles. If you want to beat the trap we just talked about, you really need to understand the game that's being played here. The examiners aren't just testing whether you can balance a ledger. They are actively targeting specific cognitive domains. A successful candidate absolutely must demonstrate competence across all these assessment objectives. Sure, it starts with basic knowledge and understanding of the rules, but you quickly have to step up to analysis and evaluation. You have to use evidence-based reasoning to back up exactly why an adjustment is necessary and correctly identify causal relationships. For example, how does an accrual directly impact both the income statement and the statement of financial position? Unlocking those top-tier marking bands means hitting every single one of these domains.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the secret it reveals about the theoretical architecture of the exam. Principal examiner reports explicitly highlight that candidates who reference cross-topic connections achieve significantly higher marks. Think about it. Adjustments do not exist in a vacuum. Integrating your knowledge of accruals and prepayments with other syllabus areas, like how they affect liquidity ratios or the allowance for doubtful debts, shows the examiner a holistic, masterful understanding of accounting. That's how you stand out.
Section 3, the standardized methodology. Now, before we get into this highly procedural arc to give you a structured framework, I want to take a quick second. If you're serious about crushing your Cambridge exams and want to build a consistent strategy, you need to subscribe to the channel Ace the Exams, IGCSE, O, and A levels at acetheexam_IGCS. Make sure you enable all notifications so you never miss one of our weekly Cambridge breakthrough strategies. Okay, let's get back into how we eliminate exam anxiety.
There is an exact 5-step standardized sequence that examiners expect to see when you deconstruct and extract data from stimulus materials. First, identify the key elements. Literally extract the dates, the amounts, and the specific context from the text. Second, apply the relevant accounting principles. Third, execute your analysis with clear, readable working. Fourth, verify your results to make sure they're actually reasonable. And fifth, present your final answer using the appropriate format and correct terminology. If you drill this sequence into your head, you will never sit there staring at a blank page wondering where to start.
The absolute crucial point here is what we call the method mark strategy. In complex, practical applications, marks are very often awarded for the process, not just the final number. By executing your analysis with clear notations and a systematic step-by-step process, you lower your own cognitive load. Plus, it ensures that even if you make a tiny arithmetic error under pressure, you still capture the vast majority of the method marks available. Your structure is literally your safety net.
Section 4. Top 3 Examiner Warnings. We are now shifting to the most exclusive part of this explainer, the inside scoop on where students lose marks.
Pay close attention, because these 3 major pitfalls are extracted straight from actual grading rubrics and principal examiner reports. First, answers are way too vague. Examiners do not want generic textbook definitions. They want specific details applied to the scenario in front of you. Second, candidates constantly forget to check format and presentation, which just throws away easy professional skill marks. And third, answers are not specific to the given context. If the business is a manufacturing firm, your analysis of an accrual needs to reflect that specific business environment, not just some random theoretical one.
Let's explicitly contrast a vague response with a specific one so you can see exactly how crucial context is for securing higher-order marks. A vague answer might just say, adjust the expense account. Honestly, that earns minimal marks. But contrast that with a context-specific detail. The $500 rent prepayment must be deducted from the current year's administrative expenses and recorded as a current asset to ensure the matching principle is upheld for the retail segment. See the difference there? It's night and day.
To help you avoid getting stuck with vague answers, here is a really powerful memory technique to help you encode these concepts. Instead of relying on rote memorization, which, let's face it, usually breaks down under exam pressure, use a visual story method. Visualize the flow of money like a timeline. Picture the cash leaving the bank, traveling across the financial year, and then either stopping early as a prepayment or stretching out beyond the year-end as an accrual. Storytelling encodes the logic of financial adjustments so much deeper into your memory. Finally, Section 5, Mastering Evaluation Strategies. This is where we focus on unlocking the highest tier marking bands through critical problem solving. For those heavy 9 to 15 mark questions, examiners require a strict deconstruct, solve, and evaluate problem-solving loop. You identify the given info, you break it into logical steps, and you solve it systematically. But listen, it's steps 4 and 5 that separate a good scholar from a top scholar, checking for reasonableness and making justified recommendations. Higher-order assessment objectives absolutely demand that you evaluate alternatives and justify your final recommendations using the exact evidence you just calculated. And this brilliantly illustrates the exact difference between basic descriptive analysis and the high-order comparative analysis that examiners demand. A mid-tier answer is just listing facts, but a top-tier answer, that requires comparative analysis. Examiners explicitly want you to identify similarities and differences using comparative connectives, words like whereas, conversely, or in contrast. You have to support each comparison with evidence and draw a conclusion about their relative importance. This framework of moving from descriptive to analytical to evaluative is your golden ticket. So what does this all mean for you? We've covered a tremendous amount of ground today, from the trap of vague terminology to our 5-step standardized methodology, right through to the exact areas where examiners will dock your points. I'll leave you with this provocative thought. When you sit down for your 9706 exam, will you rely on fragile rote memorization, or are you ready to visualize the story behind the financial adjustments and evaluate them with precision? It's up to you to take these strategies and apply them to your past papers. And remember, crushing Cambridge exams requires a consistent strategy. So right now, make sure you hit that subscribe button for Ace the Exam's IGCSE O and A levels at Ace the XEEM IGCSE. Turn on the notification bell for all our future exam hacks, and drop a comment below with your target grade. Keep practicing, and I will see you in the next explainer.